I want to welcome everybody to the Rivertown Detroit Association meeting. Our guest is Detroit Police Chief James White. And Chief, welcome. Tom Evans, who is here, is the founder with me of Rivertown Detroit. And these are the kinds of meetings I have to tell you we love, because we get together and we want to hear what's on your mind, and anyone who has questions has an opportunity to address them with you. Before we start, I just want to give everybody some background on the chief. Appointed the interim chief, the Detroit Police Department, June 1st of 21, and confirmed by the City Council as Chief of Police, September 21st, 2021. Born and raised in Detroit, let some more folks in here. Proud graduate of Wayne County Community College, earned his Associate of Arts degree in General Studies, went on to a baccalaureate degree at Wayne State, minor in psychology, Master of Science in Counseling at Central Michigan. 2018 earned the MBA from Wayne State University's Mike Ilitch School of Business. 26 years of public service, and congratulations, Chief, for that. You were very involved in the consent decree judgments, which we all lived through.
Yes.
Started and established the Civilian Advisory Committee. What also impressed me, Chief, I will tell you right now, is your passion for helping others. And I can see that with the fact that you have become a counselor and also mental health services focused. I think that's so important. You're a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. You're a state certified counselor with Northeast Guidance Center. As a profound model, and I absolutely love this last sentence, as a profound model of exemplary supervision and law enforcement administration, Chief White has represented the Detroit Police Department and the city of Detroit with distinction. Throughout his career, he's gone beyond to earn the respect of peers, citizens of Detroit, of which I am, and countless others nationwide. It is my pleasure, Chief, to welcome you to Rivertown, and I'll turn it over to you, and thank you for being with us.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm humbled by that introduction, and thank you for those kind words. I am no longer with the Northeast Guidance Center, but I did do my clinicals there.
Hello, everybody go on mute, please, if you would. Thank you, except for the chief.
This is what they'll see for the first minute.
And so I am very passionate about.
They got James White on this meeting.
Hang on, Chief. Let me just get, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I am very passionate about people. We can't do what we do without people. As you indicated, I've been here 26 years. I retired 2020 to take a job with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. I was humbled and honored to be appointed to the governor's cabinet to lead the Michigan Department of Civil Rights at a time when there wasn't a whole lot of confidence in policing. And so for a police officer to get a role that important is something that I will always treasure. But when given the opportunity to come back and lead the men and women of this great department, I just couldn't turn it down. I love the city. I love the department. So I had to shuffle some things around because I was getting ready to move to Lansing and do a lot of things like that. But I'm happy to be home and happy to be serving this great city. I do want to leave time for questions, but I want to just kind of talk through the work that we've done since June. I walked into a department that was looking at about a 20% uptick in homicides and a little over 25%, I believe. I'm just going from memory, in non-fatal shootings, replacing arguably one of the most popular chiefs in the history of Detroit police chiefs. Has not been easy. A lot of people miss him, but I've got full support of my command team and my officers, and that's humbling to me. But we were able to do some things right out the gate that was important. And one is to really install a 5-point plan to help us get a handle on crime. And as a result, we closed the year as one of the few major cities. And actually, I can't find another major city, but I find it hard to believe we're the only major city that is, to report a reduction in criminal homicides and non-fatal shootings. There's an uptick right now in violent crime around the country. And for the first time in a very long time, Detroit is reporting a 4% reduction in criminal homicides, a 9% reduction in non-fatal shootings, and an 18% reduction in robberies. And those are numbers, and all they are is numbers. And certainly they're only numbers when you have to look a mother in the face who's bearing a son or someone who's lost a loved one as it relates to our violent crime problem that we have in our city. So we're going to keep driving that message home that we need the community. We had a tragic situation yesterday with a missing person that concluded with her being found in our city. And I'll spare you the horrific particulars, but let me just say, it's a very tragic ending. She lost her life. We arrested her intimate partner, and we got another case that we're looking for a young lady out of East Point, and we're hopeful and prayerful that we find her alive. But a lot of work is being put into that case. So we've got a violence issue, like a lot of major cities around the country, and we're working very hard to solve it. We're not going to ever be able to completely solve it because people are, the more we lock them up, the more they're lining up to be locked up. And so we recognize that we're not going to be able to wrest our way out of crime. And that's why mental health and mental health support, community engagement, these things are very important to the success of any police department. We have a 5-point strategy I do want to highlight really quickly because you're going to be seeing a lot of that this spring. I'm going to be releasing our community safety plan in the next few weeks to the community, media, through the media on our website, and hopefully we can get you a copy of it. And it's going to really expand on what's worked, and that's our increased police presence. You got to be out there, you got to be seen. And that doesn't mean harassment. That doesn't mean, doing things that are not constitutional. We're talking about patrol, old school patrol, walking the beat, and engaging the community. Stricter noise enforcement. We don't mind folks having a good time, having a party, but there comes a time when you got to turn the music down and the party has to end. And we're going to ensure that the party ends safely. And so we did some of that last year. Commander Giaquinto did a phenomenal job pressuring me to give him more personnel and highlighting some areas that he needs additional personnel to attack our drifting and drag racing problem. And so we're going to continue to do that. Heavier policing on the drag racing issues is also very important. It's important to safety, number one, the noise that it comes with, the party atmosphere that it comes with, and then the safety aspect of losing control of this vehicle and someone getting hurt. So we want to make sure that we continue to focus on that. I talked about the increased community engagement, and that's, bringing our clergy to the table, our community ambassadors, these types of meetings, making time to engage in these types of meetings. And now that I'm part of this community, I want to make sure that I'm engaged because I'm a resident of Harbortown and want to make sure that I'm engaged with all of you. And then parking lot and code enforcement. Now that might sound like, really, parking lot enforcement? Well, yeah, because what happens is we call them, pop-up parties, right? So you get 2 or 3 cars, a little music starts to go, and then a couple of drinks, and then before you know it, we've got a full-fledged party going on in a parking lot. And so we've really been uber focused on making sure that we control that. But at the same time, you don't want to treat the entire community like it's doing something wrong because they're having a good time. So it's a delicate walk, and you have to do so constitutionally, respectfully. I do want to highlight something before I take some questions, is this notion of, illegally arresting people that are CPL holders. I spoke on that, and when you look at the number of guns that we've taken off the streets in this city, it's a scary number, and the number continues to grow. But what wasn't said in that news report, for those of you who saw it, is there's a number of CPL holders that have engaged in impulse decision making, where at the end of a party there's a conflict at the party and someone gets shot. I can't ask the officers to not enforce the law because a person failed to renew their CPL, and nor would I. But what I can do is ensure that it's done constitutionally, that we're not pulling people over, looking for a gun. But if a traffic violation happens and the officer legally and constitutionally does that traffic violation, and the owner of that weapon and the CPL holder is required to say to the officer, "I'm a CPL holder," and they do that, and the officer says, "Let me see your CPL," and the CPL happens to be expired, then it would be improper for the officer not to take the appropriate enforcement action. And so that's really, very quickly, the kind of work that I'm going to support and continue to support. And I'll pause here because I've been talking for about 10 minutes and take any questions or any concerns that you all may have. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all.
Well, Chief, thank you very much. And we'll take questions here. I just want to say it is great that when you see national stories written about crime, you no longer see Detroit on the list at all. It isn't like it's even in there. It's just not there. You hear about other cities, and that's a lot of effort done by your group. And I want to see that and continue. So let me open up the floor to whoever would like to ask a question of Chief White. Just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, I have a question about being a CPL holder. When the police say gonna pull you over, they may check your license plate first. Do they know that I'm a CPL holder?
I will tell you that usually no, but I have seen instances where when you run a plate, because as you know, technology is constantly evolving, there is additional information. And I have heard recently that the fact that you're a CPL holder has been associated with some plates, but I don't have enough information on that. I was actually just talking to an officer about that recently. But generally speaking, the answer is no. And that's something that you must disclose as a CPL holder as part of the privilege of having a CPL.
I have another question in regards to Belle Isle. I was in a meeting earlier today, and they were talking about when you first come onto the island, there's like a large parking lot there, I guess associated with the Grand Prix. So now that that's leaving, they want to redo that, and I guess they're asking you all to go somewhere else. But my question is, what were you doing out there? I come onto the island, I see a lot of cars and a lot of cones out there and things going on.
Oh, you had me concerned there for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, we shouldn't be patrolling Belle Isle. And then when you said the cones, so we do our driver's training course for the new police officers to show them how to do traffic stops, how to engage in chases, and how to de-escalate or discontinue chases and things like that. So that area you saw with the cones, the new police officers train there.
Thank you.
Other questions for the chief from the group? And I see Senator Chang is with us. Thank you for joining us, Senator. Thank you all. I have a question for you, Chief. How can we, as part of Rivertown, work closer with you? What else can we do to help support your effort?
Well, thank you for that question. And it's not just Rivertown. It's all of us, right? I mean, we have to not start to be desensitized towards violence and crime. And it's so frustrating that the attitude, and I don't mean by our residents, I see it with media, I see it in print, that crime is just something that's part of Detroit. I don't subscribe to that. I think that we have a right to live with a degree of peace. I mean, crime's going to happen anywhere, but it just seems to be just a tolerance for violent crime in our community that we just don't have to accept. And so these types of meetings are important. Accountability across the board to our prosecutors, to our judges, that when we get these people off the street, that they're incarcerated and they're not given personal bonds, and then making wise decisions when we vote these folks in office. I mean, I don't want to get political, but we're part of a process, and we do a really good job at our piece. We don't always get it right, but we get it right more times than not. And the officers work very hard, as we all agree. But once you get these folks off the street and they've shown themselves to be violent offenders, we need a process. We need to rehabilitate them. That needs to be intentional. We need to know exactly what that looks like. Simply throwing somebody in jail, giving them time, with no support services, and then, releasing them out into our community again. What have we really done? We're putting people in 4, 5, 6 year timeouts and then releasing them into our community. But if you got a violent offender, they're going to need some mental health support. They're going to need things. And I think that we all have to be vocal about our own safety and what it means, and how important it is to us, because there's just too much violence in our community. And there's an uptick right now in violence against women. We're seeing already this year a large number of domestic assaults, and a large number of intimate partner fatalities that we really need to be focused on, and making sure that the requisite dollars are being spent for that support that's needed. And it has to happen at the first opportunity for engagement, meaning when a person uses violence to solve a dispute, I don't want to see them cleaning the side of the freeway. I want to see them in some type of course, some type of mental health support to ensure that they don't make those same decisions again. We just need to change the way we do business. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. JW, you got another question?
Yeah, I guess I'm backtracking. I was thinking, is it unlawful if, say, you forget to identify that you're a CPL holder? I mean, is that a crime? If
Well,
you don't, go ahead.
So there's a lot of CPL rules out there. And when you take the course, as you know, sir, they tell you there's some requirements. And so that is a actual violation of the CPL law, the CPL rules, that you must disclose upon the engagement of the officer. And I don't have the exact language, so I'm going from memory. But you get pulled over, I say, good afternoon, pulled you over for this, driver's license, registration, and insurance. At that moment, you get a chance to talk. Your first response should be, I'm a CPL holder and I'm carrying. And then it goes from there. And that's just a safety thing for all involved, because what could happen if you don't disclose immediately, the officer sees that gun, or she sees, what they perceive to be you reaching for that gun. It could be problematic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, to your mental health initiative, last month we had Cynthia and Alvin Sims on as part of the Detroit Youth Violence Initiative,
Yes.
which you have in place. That was a response to the tragedy at Oxford, to see if we could not bring help to our kids growing up, which leads me to the next question for you. What initiatives with the kids growing up do you have in place? These are working with potential, offenders, certainly ones you want to catch them, but are you reaching out to the community to try to change the dynamic of that youth?
We are, and we've got programs, and I think programs are good, but there's another piece that we need the community's help with. So, we've got a program that we launched about 2 months ago, Wayne County Community College. And what we're doing is we're trying to set up a program. Well, we have set up a program where the kids can get a dual track. So everybody's not going to go away to college, and we wanted an opportunity for these young folks to get a job, a good job. And so we set up a program where they can get a dual track into the police department if they wanted to be a police officer. And we're going to be expanding that hopefully soon, talking to the fire department, so that these kids that graduate, getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I muted. Go ahead.
So these kids that are, scheduled to graduate that aren't going away to college, maybe they would find a rewarding career in law enforcement. So we already have launched that program. We got the Detroit Public Safety Academy, which is actually a school, on board. We've signed up a couple other schools, and we're excited about that. Our NPO is doing an amazing job working with different schools, different kids. And then there are a number of, you talked about the Youth Violence Initiative, and there's some other programs that we have. However, those are great. Those are fantastic. But what we aren't dealing with, and I don't think we really are equipped to deal with, is the trauma that our kids are seeing and dealing with. And when you have someone who has witnessed trauma, or they either lost a loved one and no one's addressed it. Let me backtrack a little bit. So one of the things I see oftentimes in particularly suburban schools, when there is a loss or a tragedy, they bring in professionals to talk to the kids and to work with the kids and to explain to them what they deal with, what they're dealing with, and how they're feeling and emotionally. Well, unfortunately, the levels of trauma and violence that we see in our community, a lot of our kids are not having anybody to emote to. You know, they are wound tight. There's a lot of stress, a lot of problems, and we're really not doing what I think we should be doing to make sure that these kids aren't being programmed to be desensitized to violence. And I think if we really want to help the kids, we need to give them a voice. We need to give them something that they can, someone that they can emote to. I would love to see a counselor at every tragedy that a kid is involved in, and some type of services where the kids can talk to somebody and tell them how they feel. So look at what we're dealing with right now. You've got COVID, which none of us ever thought we would be in the middle of, right? I mean, none of us. And, you know, many of us are scared to death. I mean, I'm just being real. I mean, we don't know what this thing is. We just pray that it goes away. And then, you know, there's so much loss and so much sadness. But on top of that, these kids are not around their classmates. Their classmates are getting sick. School is in shambles right now because they're trying to be educated from home. Well, home for me might mean something very different than home for you. When you're telling these kids that some of these kids sought their relief by going to school, that's where their peace happened. And this situation has taken that from them. So now they've got a full day of trauma. Okay, we're asking them to exist in this world that we didn't see coming. And a lot of their friends are engaged in behaviors that are not healthy. And we're asking these kids to just ignore all of that and just keep moving forward and don't worry about anything. And so what can we do to help the kids? I think we need to give them a voice. I'm sorry, I go long-winded on this issue, but I'm very passionate.
No, this is a very important, it is a hot button for me right here.
And we need to give them counseling services. We got to give them an opportunity to talk and to tell how they feel and how difficult it is to not see their friends in school, and or the teenagers that are losing friends to gun violence and things like that. Do we ever talk to them? Do we ever ask them how they feel? We just tell them, nope, don't do it. Don't do what that guy did to get killed. But we don't really talk to them about how they feel. And I think that's, if we're really going to make an impact on crime, we got to prevent future criminals. And how you do that is you deal with the trauma that a lot of kids are dealing with when they're engaging in this bad behavior.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chief. I know we only got a few minutes left. I got a couple questions. I see phone number 313-289 has a hand up. I'm not sure who that is. I don't see a name. Would you like to ask the Chief a question? Still on, if you're on mute, if you're saying something. If not, I'll go to Letty. Letty, you had a question?
No, I just had an applause for the integrating trauma counseling in the
Okay,
school.
no problem. I agree. And I see Dr. Jenkins is on from the Detroit Public Schools. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins, for joining us. We appreciate it. And I see JW, you got a question.
Yeah, I believe it was Karen Dubas had a conversation about conflict resolution being taught in school. And I was wondering if you think there's some merit to that. And one little sidebar question to get personal. You look very healthy. What are you doing?
Well, I looked a little healthier 6 months ago. I'm age progressing big time. But I was diagnosed with diabetes 6 years ago. And I got back into running. And so to keep me off of metformin and insulin, I've run 3 to 4 days a week, just 3 miles, but I have to, because metformin is a nasty drug. And so as long as I do that, I keep my numbers together. So it's to run. But thank you for that. But you should see my 6 months ago pictures before all of this. Conflict resolution. I think anytime you can introduce conflict resolution and ways to argue, I mean, I'm 53 and I remember having an argument in school, even a fight in school, and that was it. The kids, a lot of the younger kids today, they can't lose a fight. They can't lose an argument. And there has to be some closeout to the loss of the fight. So we see, we had a kid a few weeks ago, and you probably just a horrible crime. 15 or 16-year-old kid gets into an argument with another 15 or 16-year-old kid on Instagram. Okay, which I don't even know how you have a social media argument. Just turn it off. But in any event, I guess you can't stop looking at it when you're arguing on it. And they meet up at a gas station to have a fist fight.
Mhm.
Well, the one kid shows up with a gun, brought a gun to a fist fight, and he kills him. He didn't just shoot him, gun jams, and he stands there in the door and, racks it again to clear the jam and shoots him again. It jams again, racks it again, clears it and shoots him again. So when you look at this, yes, it's a horrific crime. All the trauma of all the kids who knows the two kids, all the trauma of everyone who saw it. And, when we see these things on the news, there used to be a time where we would pause and go, oh my God, now we're just on to the weather. And so now we're becoming desensitized to the violence. But more importantly, you've got two kids that are fighting over something that shouldn't have cost their lives. You're having a social media fight. What is that? I don't even know what that really is. So, but now one kid's going to prison for the rest of his life, and another kid doesn't have a life. And so I think conflict resolution is very important. But again, I think it has to be directed by the courts. We really got to ask our courts to do something that they've never done before, and simply locking everybody up. Certainly there are crimes that you got to go to jail for. But every time I see somebody doing community service, I ask myself, have we prevented somebody from committing a crime again? You've got a captive audience. Here's a perfect opportunity to put them in counseling services for the offense, whether it's drunk driving. Generally speaking, if it's drunk driving, something went bad that caused a person to overindulge. It might be trying to self-medicate from trauma. Why not put them in a counseling program to help them so the recidivism rate goes down? So that's what I think. When we can talk about this all day, I may have to come back and just spend some time on this topic, because I know I'm long-winded on it. But yes, I think conflict resolution and counseling should be in every school. Any opportunity to engage in it at a low level before the person commits a crime of no return, we should be engaged in. And that's that low level crime, disorderly conduct, resisting and obstructing police, low level domestic issues, not the violence, but the arguments that result in people calling the police, that type of thing.
You're very passionate. I have a question here for you, Chief. I know we're going to lose you here in a few minutes here. It says, this is from Dave and Sue. Chief, your positive press conference recently had many law enforcement representatives from state and federal agencies. Can you expand on that approach to cooperation?
100% collaboration. It's not about me, it's us. It's our community. And these federal partners, I mean, they represent Detroit as well. And, I'm not a person that's going to stand here and say, look at me. I'm going to say, look at us. These men and women out here putting their lives on the line day in and day out. Our Wayne County partners, we're in Wayne County. You got some policing services, bring it over. We need all the services we can get. Our federal partners, we all hear about these federal cases. You're going to take these cases federal and change behavior. Come on over and I got some cases for you. So we want to partner, and I'm not going to, listen, this department works very, very hard. But we can use all the assistance we can to eradicate violent crime. And so you'll see a lot more of that. I'm very, very happy with the new U.S. attorney and some of the conversations that we've had. I've stood with the prosecutor on some issues, and I am excited about continuing to build those bridges with law enforcement partners to reduce this crime in the city. My goal is to reduce violent crime in Detroit, and we cannot do it by ourselves. We're going to do it with everybody who is standing up saying they've got a vested interest in safety in this community. Well, come on. We got some work for you.
That is awesome. Do you have a couple more minutes, Chief?
I'll stay a couple more minutes. I'll be late for the next meeting.
The other question I have for you is on violence, and that is the shootings of kids by accident. And we just heard the tragedy. I don't know. I hadn't heard the outcome, where the friend of a mother came over. The gun was in the pocket. The 3-year-old got it and shot himself. Now, I don't know if the child died or not. I hope it did not. But what else can we do to prevent those kinds of tragedies?
Well, I'm gonna do what you did at the start of the meeting and embarrass the commander here. So the commander was on that scene. I showed up much later, and you probably seen the repeat of the media piece where he's just standing out front, clearly frustrated, but certainly professional, with another kid in our community being shot. You know, this situation, I'll tell you briefly. Lady comes over to pick up some food or something from a friend who was preparing the food in another room. She takes her jacket off, lays it over the sofa in another room from where she was. Kid goes into that room, goes into the pocket. She's a CPL holder. The baby pulls the gun out, shoots himself in the head. The baby did live, thank God. But again, back to that trauma thing, but I won't get back on that again. But the baby certainly won't be dealing with trauma forever. But didn't have to happen. Have to have responsible gun ownership. People who make the decision to carry a weapon. I've been carrying a gun for almost 27 years. And it is a tremendous responsibility. You know, even today, you know, I take it off, I secure it, or I put it in an area if I'm going to have guests where, you know, no one can get to it. And I'm a police officer, you know, so if you are a CPL holder or if you just have a weapon, you have to have the responsibility to secure it. And I say something a lot about gun ownership. It's a shared responsibility. And someone asked me the other day, what do you mean by that? Well, it's shared because it's your responsibility. But once you make a decision to bring a gun into someone's home, you've got to notify them. I got a gun on me, you know, and if they've got kids, they need to know that there's a gun in their home, because some people don't allow guns in their home and don't want guns around their kids. So it's a responsibility. And if that homeowner says, yes, you can have that weapon, then it's their responsibility as well to make sure that you secure it. These stories happen all too often. Sadly, you know, we're going to be at another one. And I don't know the answer. We're talking about public service announcements, but generally speaking, the people who adhere to those are not the people that are having the problem. So.
Absolutely true. And that was so tragic. And we've heard so many of those stories. But you're right, it's responsibility for you carrying the gun, but also the homeowner, that if you're in that house, that gun is there for anybody can get to it. Last call for questions. I'm over time with the chief by 5 minutes here. Brian's got a question. Brian Walker, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to commend the chief. I'm with Visit Detroit, and we work closely with TAC Ops downtown, and bringing conventions to the city is critical. You had mentioned about how we're perceived in as crime, but our job is to bring conventions in, people from all over the country, you know. And when I go to different cities, the first thing I do is turn on the TV. And no matter what city I'm in, it's the same thing as far as crime, you know, murder, drugs, and things of that nature. But you all are very good in partnering with us to, for lack of a better term, brain surgery. You know, we turn people's attitudes around. When they come to the city, they see the city and they know it's living and breathing. You all come, I know the last person I worked with quite extensively was Sergeant Blackwell. I think she's Lieutenant Blackwell now, and a few other people. But bringing people to the city and partnering with you all is a godsend. So the city is coming back, and our job is to make sure people have a great experience here, and you all help us do that. So I just wanted to commend you and your team for that.
Well, thank you for that. And she's now Captain Blackwell. We promoted
Captain
her.
Blackwell. Oh, okay.
So, well, let me say this. Thank you all very much. And I don't want this to be my last time here. So we'll be launching our crime strategy here soon. And I'd love to come back and greet you and produce a copy of that so you all can at least see the highlights of it. Maybe I can do some type of presentation for this group, and be happy to do it.
We would love, you are welcome anytime, Chief. And I will also be dropping off one of our Rivertown logos for your office here behind me. You see it.
Right.
It was Dominic Pangborn developed that for us. But I have to say, one of the nice things about doing meetings like this is the up close and personal opportunity for us to get to know you. And for people who may not have the opportunity to chat with you, to really understand who you are and what you're all about. And thank you for sharing all of that with us, because that was a very special meeting. With that, unless there are any other questions, we're going to let the chief go. And thank everybody for joining us. We're working on the February meeting coming up here shortly. Chief, you, or if Commander Giaquinto or any of your team need any help, please reach out to me, or any of us will be happy to do whatever we can to support your initiatives.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate that.
All right. And
Take
thank
care.
you, everybody, for joining us. You'll see my announcement coming out for February, and everybody have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.